Before the American Mafia became a nationwide force, one gang ruled the streets of New York. Its leader was Paul Kelly. His organization didn't just control crime. It trained the men who would build America's most powerful crime families. This is the rise, the reign, and the fall of the 5 Points Gang. In the late 1890s, Paul Kelly founded the 5 Points Gang in Lower Manhattan. Unlike most street gangs, Kelly wanted discipline instead of chaos. He recruited young men from poor neighborhoods across New York. Many were immigrants with few opportunities. Kelly demanded loyalty above everything else. Members trained together and followed strict orders. The gang quickly gained a reputation for organization and efficiency. Small gangs either joined Kelly or disappeared. Within a few years, the 5 Points Gang controlled much of Lower Manhattan. Its influence continued growing every month. Kelly wasn't satisfied with controlling only the streets. He wanted power that reached far beyond the neighborhood. Soon, his gang became one of the most feared organizations in New York. The 5 Points Gang earned enormous profits through illegal businesses. They controlled gambling operations across several neighborhoods. They demanded protection money from local businesses. Those who refused often faced threats or violent attacks. The gang also operated brothels and illegal drinking establishments. Every successful operation made Kelly richer and more influential. Money allowed him to recruit even more members. His network expanded across the city. Corrupt politicians quietly accepted the gang's support during elections. In return, authorities often ignored the gang's activities. With money, influence, and loyal soldiers, Kelly built a criminal empire unlike anything New York had seen. But another powerful gang refused to surrender its territory. That rival was the notorious Monk Eastman Gang. Both organizations wanted complete control of New York's underworld. At first, the conflict centered on gambling and protection rackets. Soon, it spread across entire neighborhoods. Violence became increasingly common. Street fights often ended with serious injuries or deaths. Gunfire echoed through crowded streets. Businesses were caught between rival gangs. Many owners paid whichever gang arrived first. Others paid both, hoping to avoid retaliation. The battle lasted for years. Neither side wanted to appear weak. Kelly understood that fear alone could not secure victory. He relied on planning as much as force. He carefully selected trusted lieutenants to manage different territories. His organization operated more like a business than a street gang. That structure gave the 5 Points Gang a major advantage. While rivals fought over blocks, Kelly focused on building a lasting organization. His strategy attracted ambitious young criminals eager to rise through the ranks. Several of them would later become legendary figures in American organized crime. Among those young recruits were future Mafia leaders like Lucky Luciano and Johnny Torrio. The gang had become more than a criminal organization. It had become a school for the next generation of mob bosses. But growing power also brought growing attention. Soon, the authorities could no longer ignore Paul Kelly's empire. By the early 1900s, public outrage was growing. Newspapers published stories about gang violence almost every week. Citizens demanded that city officials restore order. Police launched larger operations against organized gangs. Corrupt political alliances also began to weaken. Kelly could no longer rely on the protection he once enjoyed. Then came one of the biggest turning points. In 1905, a violent shooting linked to gang rivalries shocked New York. The incident drew intense public attention. Authorities increased pressure on the 5 Points Gang. Several members were arrested. Others fled or joined different organizations. Kelly realized the streets were becoming too dangerous. Rather than fight a losing battle, he slowly stepped back. He handed more responsibility to trusted associates. Without his direct leadership, the gang began to lose its unity. Former members formed their own criminal groups. Some moved to Chicago. Others joined emerging mafia organizations across the country. Although the 5 Points Gang gradually disappeared, its influence did not. Its methods lived on through the men it had trained. The gang was gone. Its legacy was only beginning. In the years ahead, former 5 Points members would reshape organized crime across America. When the 5 Points Gang faded, its members did not disappear. They carried Kelly's methods wherever they went. Young criminals who once followed his orders became powerful crime bosses. Johnny Torrio moved to Chicago and built a sophisticated criminal organization. His business model inspired a new generation of gang leaders. One of his most famous protégés was Al Capone. Capone would later dominate Chicago during the Prohibition era. Meanwhile, Lucky Luciano transformed organized crime in New York. Instead of endless gang wars, Luciano promoted cooperation between crime families. He helped create a national structure that influenced organized crime for decades. Many historians believe those ideas began with lessons learned in the 5 Points Gang. Paul Kelly never became as famous as Capone or Luciano, yet his influence reached nearly every corner of the American underworld. He proved that discipline could be more powerful than chaos. He showed that money, organization, and political connections could build a lasting criminal empire. Kelly spent his final years away from the spotlight. He died in 1936, leaving behind a complicated legacy. The 5 Points Gang was gone, but its impact remained visible for generations.
Many of America's most notorious crime syndicates traced part of their history back to Paul Kelly's organization. The streets of 5 Points eventually changed. The gang disappeared. The neighborhood evolved. But the story of Paul Kelly remains one of the most important chapters in the history of organized crime in the United States. The first great criminal empire had fallen. Its legacy, however, had only just begun.